Hey there, and welcome to Family Revenge. We're so glad you're here. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can stay with us for every twist and turn. Let's jump right in. I figured you'd end up back here, Dad said, popping the tab on his second Miller Lite. City life's not for everyone. Bet you're doing something cushy in HR now, huh? I was sitting across the table from him, picking at my potato salad like it might bite back. We were on the back porch, same busted picnic table from high school, same lopsided umbrella that always leaned just enough to be useless. It was a Sunday, our usual lunch thing. Except nothing about it felt usual to me anymore. My job's not cushy, I said. Quiet, not sharp. Just enough for him to hear if he felt like listening. Ben laughed from the other end of the table, arms spread like he was on stage. Come on, Dana. You've got to admit, corporate HR sounds like a dream after New York. All that noise, all those people. Bet you're glad to be home I didn't correct him. I hadn't lived in Oklahoma full-time in over 20 years. I was here for 2 days. But I knew better than to waste breath clarifying things that didn't fit their picture. Ben's wife, Sandy, was all angles. Sharp eyes, sharp nails, voice that always sounded like it was skimming the edge of sarcasm. She let out a little laugh. Polite, but a little too practiced. Well, she always was the dependable one. I mean, thank God someone in this family's good with logistics, right? That one earned a chuckle from Dad. She's a helper. Always was. I remember when she was 10 and started balancing the checkbook for her mama. Got no shame in that. Not everyone's got the steel for real management. I took a sip of iced tea before answering. Still working. No one asked what I meant. No one even paused. Ben was off again, talking about his latest startup. Something to do with agri-tech automation, sensors for irrigation, buzzwords packed in like they meant something. He threw around phrases like venture capital and market disruption, like he was auditioning for Shark Tank. Sandy nodded along like a metronome. I stayed quiet. I always do. Oldest sibling. The one who helps out. The one who steps in when there's a flat tire or a tax problem or a frozen pipe in winter. The one who doesn't take up much space. Still can't believe you walked away from the city, Dad said, wiping his mouth with a paper napkin. But I get it. Too cutthroat. Not built for everyone. He looked straight at me when he said it, but he wasn't really looking. That was the part that got me every time. I didn't mind the teasing. I didn't even mind the assumptions. What stung, what always stung, was how damn certain they were that they had me all figured out. Quick note, before we go further, where are you listening from today? Ben reached for another burger, Sandy poured herself a second glass of sweet tea, and Dad started talking about a friend's son who just got promoted at the bank. Nobody asked about my job, not once. I stood up to grab more ice from the kitchen. My legs moved before I even made the decision. The kitchen was quiet. I shoved the scoop into the ice bucket and let the cubes clatter into the bowl. My hands moved on autopilot like they always had. Fixing things before anyone asked, staying useful, staying out of the way. That was the job, really. Always had been. Even before I knew what the word logistics meant. When I was 18, I worked night shifts at a 24-hour diner off Route 66. Greasy floors, bottomless coffee, and truckers who tipped in crumpled ones. I'd go straight from there to class at the community college in Tulsa, then head home, shower, and study before doing it all over again. I barely slept. My skin broke out. My mom worried I'd crash my car. Dad? He didn't say much, except to ask if I could still make it to Ben's game that Friday. He's getting scouted, he told everyone. Might go all the way. I was finishing a business degree. He told people I'd probably end up doing bookkeeping somewhere. Like that was the ceiling. But I had other plans. After I transferred to OSU, I landed a temp internship for a warehouse distributor outside Dallas. Nothing glamorous, just spreadsheets, intake forms, inventory counts. But I was good at it. Not just the tasks, the patterns. I could trace where things went wrong. Late trucks, missing units, supplier mix-ups, and predict what was going to break before it did. One week, the wrong valves shipped to a manufacturer. Nearly cost them a 7-figure penalty. I flagged it, rerouted the order, and kept it off the books. The head of logistics called me the next day. Not to thank me, to offer me a job. You see things, he said, quiet but fast. That became my edge. I spent the next few years hopping jobs no one wanted, places already halfway down the drain. I didn't do titles. I didn't need corner offices. I needed messes. I needed pressure. because I knew how to work in the smoke, not just after the fire. It was around 25 when I got the offer. Black text on a white screen, no logo. Just a name, a number, and a time to meet. I thought it was a scam, but I went. Somewhere in Northern Virginia, a small office in a dead-end strip mall. I walked in and sat across from a man who never told me his full name. He asked one question. Can you fix things without needing credit for it? I said yes. That was my first job in private response. They didn't call it that, but that's what it was. Part cyber, part corporate triage. No job titles on the doors, no LinkedIn profiles, no awards, no press releases, but the work was real and urgent. Companies on the edge of collapse, systems compromised, products delayed, vendors threatening lawsuits. We were the last call before the fall. I didn't climb a ladder. I didn't need to. I built ladders in the dark so others didn't fall. The team I joined worked across sectors: tech, retail, logistics, government contracts. Sometimes we fixed code. Sometimes we replaced entire vendor chains overnight. I watched grown executives cry in conference rooms while I sat on the floor with a whiteboard and a list of names who could make magic happen if I gave them 6 hours and a direct line. We never asked for credit. We took cleanup bonuses and confidentiality clauses. Every win was buried under someone else's press release. But I kept going, job after job, contract after contract. I'd roll in under made-up roles: operations consultant, systems coordinator, even executive assistant once. Didn't matter what it said on the badge. I knew why I was there. Back home, Dad still asked if I wanted him to talk to his friend at the bank. They might need someone to balance the books. Ben was already doing sales by then, already calling himself a founder. I smiled, said I was good. Didn't matter if they didn't get it. I wasn't doing it for the spotlight. I was doing it because I was better in the shadows. I never had a business card, never needed one. After that first stretch in private response, my name started moving through whispers, not loud ones. The kind that came after someone screwed up or something failed in a way no one wanted public. The kind that started with, "There's someone who can make this go away." I worked my way up through disaster zones you'll never see in the news. Supply chains hacked from inside. Vendors threatening federal lawsuits. CEOs sleeping in their offices hoping the market didn't notice the floor caving in. My roles changed every job. Sometimes I was client coordination, sometimes systems advisor. Once, for a shipping giant on the West Coast, I walked in wearing a badge that said vendor resolution and left 5 weeks later after stopping a $200 million breach from spiraling into bankruptcy. All behind closed doors, no cameras, no applause. Just wires hitting my account and a quiet exit through a side door. And every single time, some exec would walk out front like they'd fixed it themselves. Didn't matter. That was the job. I built teams, tight ones, engineers, planners, lawyers, night shift analysts who knew how to spot sabotage before it became a headline. None of them were flashy. Most never stayed long. But the good ones, the ones who showed up at 2 in the morning and stayed until it was done, I wrote their names down, kept them in a small leather-bound notebook, the kind with an elastic band and pages that got soft at the corners from how often I flipped through it. I didn't need a team photo. That notebook was enough. They were my people, even if we never had a group call or holiday party. I didn't tell my family much. What was the point? Dad still thought I worked in spreadsheets, told people I was in tech support or HR or something. Ben? He used to crack jokes every Thanksgiving like clockwork. "You should try sales, Dana. Make some real money. Quiet doesn't close deals." You know I'd smile. Cut another slice of pie. Never said a word. Because while he was talking about margins on his latest venture, I was flying red-eye to New Jersey to stop a medical supplier from breaching FDA compliance. They would have had to recall everything. I gave them 6 more months of clean runway. The CEO took a photo with the board. I flew home with a bonus and a headache. There was a rhythm to it. Drop in, assess, contain, restructure, exit. No interviews, no trace. Just clean numbers and quiet victories. Sometimes I'd get a thank you card. Usually not. I didn't mind. I had my work. I had my list. That was enough. Until one job shifted things. A manufacturing client in Ohio was about to fold. Cyber intrusion, financial blackmail, the whole mess. I was sent in under internal audit, walked into a war zone. But this time, I didn't just patch it. I rebuilt the system, root to roof. Not just the tech, the people. Brought in the right players, cut out the ones coasting. Found a way to run leaner without losing stability. 3 months later, They were turning a profit again. The execs tried to keep me on. Big salary, perks, office view. I turned it down. Couldn't do it. I wasn't made for staying. I was made for saving. That's when I knew what I really was. Not a fixer, not a consultant. I was a fire break, a last line. The thing you called when everything else failed. And I was good at it. Better than good. But no one at home would have believed that. Not with the way I stayed quiet. Didn't matter. The work spoke, even if no one else did. 4th of July came fast that year. I flew in late, barely slept, and still found myself standing on the same cracked sidewalk near Main Street the next morning. Hot, loud, full of small-town pride. Same parade, same faded bunting strung between the light poles, same fire truck with kids waving plastic flags. Dad stood with his arms crossed, center of the crowd like he owned the block. Ben's float came next, one of those flatbed trailers with hay bales and banners slapped on last minute. Midwest Smart Grow, innovating agriculture. His company, or the latest version of it. He wore sunglasses and a polo, tossing candy to kids like a campaign stop. A woman beside us leaned over and said, "Isn't that your son? He's got a real presence. And what about your daughter? What does she do again?" Before I could open my mouth, Dad beat me to it. "She's in admin or tech or something like that," he said, still figuring it out. I didn't even flinch. Just kept watching Ben wave like a local hero, shaking hands with some guy from the radio station. He saw me, gave a thumbs up. I nodded back. No one here knew what I did. They never asked. Later at the barbecue, I stood by the smoker with a plate of brisket, while Dad laughed at one of Ben's stories about venture partners and funding rounds. Sandy handed out beers. Someone lit sparklers before the sun even went down. I chewed slow, thinking about the 3 emergencies I'd handled that week. A shipment delay in Arizona that could have tanked a quarterly report. A ransomware scare at a regional bank that we stopped just in time. And a VP's private server we quietly wiped before a compliance check. But none of that showed up on a flyer or parade float, so it didn't count. "Dana, want another helping?" Sandy asked, holding out the tongs. "I'm good," I said. She smiled like she always did, like I was a background prop in her show. Fireworks started just after 9. Everyone oohed and clapped at the right moments. I sat on a folding chair next to a cooler, still picking at my food. My niece asked if Ben was famous now. Someone said he'd been interviewed on the local station that morning. Dad called him our rising star. No one mentioned me, not once. That night, I lay on my back in my old bedroom, the ceiling fan clicking with every slow turn. My suitcase sat half-zipped on the floor. Old trophies and school photos lined the shelf across from me, untouched in years. I didn't cry, I didn't get angry, but I felt it. That cold, hollow ache under my ribs, the kind that doesn't scream, it just sinks, erased. I stared up at the ceiling until my eyes blurred and the fan disappeared into the dark. The ceiling fan was still clicking when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, East Coast area code. I didn't hesitate, just answered and rolled out of bed. "Your flight's at 6, a voice said. Names listed under vendor compliance analyst. No laptops through security. We'll brief you in the car. I didn't ask who. I never needed to. The target was a global retailer, household name. The kind you can't go a day without hearing or seeing. They'd been breached. Cyber intrusion, deep and deliberate. Billing systems rerouted, inventory data corrupted. Early signs pointed to a vendor, but no one could trace it. Legal was panicking, stock was sliding. If it leaked, the whole market would shift. They dropped me in through a back entrance, handed me a badge with a fake name, and set me up in a temporary office with no windows. I ran on vending machine coffee and stale pretzels for 3 straight days. Barely slept. Worked with a junior analyst who had panic in his eyes but didn't flinch once I gave him orders. 72 hours later, I had it mapped. A fired contractor from a third-party logistics firm had planted malware through a shared invoicing platform. We patched the gap, purged the code, neutralized the damage before regulators could even send a letter. The CEO was on CNBC by Friday, talking about resilience under pressure and our dedicated internal security teams. I got a 2-sentence thank you and a confidential memo, and a wire that hit my account before I left the parking garage. That same rhythm played out again, and again, and again. A healthcare conglomerate nearly taken down by a phishing worm that reached patient records. I stepped in as operations coordinator, traced it to an unsecured vendor node in Bangalore, Worked with a guy from Prague and a woman in Atlanta to build a firewall solution in 36 hours. The CIO got promoted. I went home. Then there was the freight company with a breach scheduling algorithm, a food distributor hit with a deepfake scam that rerouted 6 figures of inventory, a regional telecom firm that had no idea its executive email chain was fully compromised for months. Every time, I came in first, left last, always invisible. But I didn't just fix things, I built something else along the way. Mentorship started slow. An intern here, a burned out sysadmin there. People who had the instincts but not the confidence. I'd spot them during the chaos. After things settled, I'd send a text, a short note, or just a number to call when they were ready for something bigger. Over 10 years, that turned into a network. Quiet, committed, surgical. People who didn't need LinkedIn headlines to know their worth. We weren't friends. We were fixers. And we knew how to keep each other breathing through the worst of it. I got used to the solitude, preferred it most days. But the hardest part wasn't the pressure. It was going home. One Christmas, I flew in straight from a red-eye out of LAX. Hadn't even changed clothes. I was still wearing a black blazer and flats when I walked through the front door. "Still doing that computer stuff?" Dad asked, carving the ham. Ben leaned in from the living room, wine glass in hand. "You better get into AI soon before it replaces you, sis." I passed the mashed potatoes without looking up. "Maybe I'll just buy it and shut it down." He laughed like it was a joke. I didn't correct him. Truth was, I could have retired 3 times over, owned 2 properties outright, paid off my student loans before I was 30. I funded a college scholarship once, anonymously, for girls going into crisis management. Never told a soul. They thought I was coasting. I was building an empire in shadows. After dinner, I helped Sandy with the dishes. She didn't ask about my flight, just handed me a towel and started talking about Ben's latest expansion plan. I nodded along, dried each plate, and thought about the 4 different threats I had neutralized in the last 90 days. Then I folded the towel, placed it on the counter, and stepped outside into the cold air. Sometimes you just need to breathe where no one's watching. I stood on the porch with my arms crossed, breath fogging in the cold. The quiet buzz of my phone cut through the dark. One new message from Langley. Subject: Operation, black line, proposal, attached. I opened it right there, leaning against the railing, thumb scrolling through a 12-page PDF. It wasn't a cleanup job. It was a full-scale international logistics shutdown drill. Oversight, planning, live press coverage, full visibility. And at the top of the org chart, project lead, Dana R. Hayes. That had never happened before. 20-plus years of being the ghost in the machine. And now they wanted me in the light. Not just boots on the ground. Name on the report. Microphones, press briefings, real stage. I didn't respond right away. The next morning, I was back at Dad's for brunch. Same table, same chipped mug, with the John Deere logo. Ben strolled in 20 minutes late wearing a sport coat and a new watch. "Big week coming," he said, dropping into the seat across from me. "New partnership rolling out Thursday. It's AI-integrated logistics tech." Pretty cutting edge, I stirred my coffee. Yeah, doing a full launch event. Press, investors, mayor's supposed to show. Might live stream it. He turned to Dad. "You should come. I'll reserve you a seat near the front." Dad smiled like he'd just been offered a backstage pass to the Super Bowl. "Hell yeah, wouldn't miss it." Ben grinned, looked at me. "You should come too." Could learn something I didn't answer. Just picked up my fork and started cutting into my eggs. I could have told them about Blackline. Could have said I'd be running an op that crossed borders, involved 6 corporations, and required direct coordination with a U.S. agency I couldn't name out loud. Could have mentioned the press badges already being printed, but I didn't. I wanted the moment to speak for itself. Let Ben have his photo ops. Let Dad pregame the suits and the champagne like it mattered. I'd spent 2 decades earning credibility in silence. I wasn't about to start tap dancing now. Later that night, I called Langley and said yes. The plan was already in motion by morning. Calls, interviews, media kits. My first official photo taken against a plain gray wall. I wore a fitted blazer and a slight smile. No teeth, no flash, just enough. The Dallas air was thick with heat and hotel exhaust, but inside the conference center, it was cold and clean. Carpets too plush, lights too bright. I moved through the security line like I'd done it 100 times, because I had. Only this time, there wasn't a fake name on my badge. Dana R., Hayes Director, Blackline Ops Lead Architect, National Contingency Drill. I clipped the badge to my blazer and walked toward the ballroom, heels clicking on tile. Rows of suited execs filled the lobby, names I'd seen on memos and behind firewalls. A few agency reps from DC were standing near the side entrance, eyes scanning every face. I knew them. They didn't know me, but today they would. Inside, the main hall buzzed with small talk and fake smiles. Rows of white chairs, staged lighting, panel tables draped in navy blue. The moderator's voice echoed from the speakers as he introduced the final group on stage, tech entrepreneurs and logistics sponsors. That's when I saw him. Ben, hair slicked back, navy suit, open collar. His company's logo lit up behind him. Smart Grow AI. Tagline under it in bold italics, precision made simple. He was mid-sentence, pitching something about automated freight routing and agricultural elasticity. No substance, just noise. I didn't blink. A clipboard landed in my hand. One of the event staff gave me a tight nod. "You're next." 2 minutes I stood off stage, hands resting lightly at my sides. Calm, controlled. The way you are when you've walked through fire so many times it doesn't scare you anymore. The moderator's voice cut through the static. And now, to close this year's Operations Summit, we're proud to introduce the architect of the entire Blackline exercise, the woman who led the coordination from start to finish, Dana R. Hayes. Ben froze. I watched his jaw tighten, lips part just slightly, breath caught in his throat. His eyes found mine as I stepped up the stairs, credentials swinging gently against my blazer. The moderator gestured toward the podium. I didn't rush. I walked to the center of the stage, adjusted the mic, and scanned the crowd. No stammer, no smile, just clarity. Blackline wasn't designed to impress, I said. It was designed to fail and survive it. Silence. Then, I started walking them through the drill. Logistics breakdown across 6 states, cold storage compromise, simulated ransomware, vendor cascade failure. I laid it out piece by piece, method by method. How we built containment, how we restructured chain flow, how one bad line of code was caught in under 4 minutes because we trained the right people. No filler, no flash, just facts. Heads nodded. Pens moved. Phones went still. The audience leaned in. I wasn't loud. I didn't have to be. By the time I reached the recovery metrics, someone in the second row stood up. Applause started, scattered at first, then rolling through the room. A standing ovation. I didn't step back or bow or beam. I just gave a single, quiet nod. Not showy, but unmistakable. And then I looked down. Second row. Dead center. Dad. Mouth slightly open, hand still on his lap. He wasn't clapping. He wasn't smirking. He was just stunned. I held his gaze for maybe half a second. That was enough. Ben still sat on stage, legs crossed, back too straight. His face had gone stiff. He clapped eventually, but it looked mechanical, like his body was doing something his brain hadn't caught up to yet. When the moderator returned to the podium, I stepped off and walked behind the curtain. No detours, no waiting around for handshakes or cameras. That wasn't why I was here. One of the agency guys caught up to me in the back hallway. He offered his card. I took it and didn't stop walking. Behind me, the applause kept going. I was in the hallway outside the ballroom, pulling cables and folding up my notes when I heard the shoes behind me. Quick steps, sharp breath. Ben. He came around the corner fast, still in his navy suit, face flushed red from the neck up, jacket unbuttoned, tie crooked. "You never told me," he said, voice low but tight. "You just let us assume." I didn't look up, just zipped the tech bag and straightened. "You never asked." That stopped him. He stood there for a second, mouth half open like he wanted to argue, but nothing came out. "I thought you were just coasting," he said finally. "I thought you didn't want more. Like, you didn't care about going big." I turned and met his eyes. "I've been going big for 2 decades, just not where you were looking." His jaw clenched again, but softer this time, like something was breaking down under the surface. "What is it you even do?" he asked. I gave him the basics. No code names, no classified details, just enough. I told him about the operations, the kinds of drills, the scale. I told him how I'd been dropped into failing companies with no press, no title, just a deadline and a lock on the door. I told him about shutting down international breaches, rerouting entire distribution systems in under 24 hours, and keeping corporations alive before their boards even knew they were bleeding. He didn't move, didn't interrupt, just listened. His face changed. Damn, he said, and it wasn't smug, wasn't sarcastic, it was real, quiet, like a truth he hadn't been ready for until just now. Then he looked down, rubbed the back of his neck. I was always so focused on the next big thing. All that visibility, all that noise. And you, I wasn't chasing noise, I said. I was holding the line. He nodded once, no comeback, just that. We stood there for a minute, hallway half empty now, soft echo of conference chatter drifting in from another room. It wasn't warm between us, not suddenly, but it was honest. That was new. He reached out like he might pat my arm, then pulled his hand back. You know, I think Dad's in shock, probably. I mean, he always thought you were doing spreadsheets. I let out the faintest laugh. So did everyone. He smiled, but it was strained. You gonna be on the news? Brief clips, maybe quotes. I'm not here for fame, Ben. I know, he said. You never were. That night, I checked into my hotel and dropped my bag without turning the light on. Sat on the edge of the bed, shoes still on, phone in my hand. A message popped up from Dad. Didn't know. I do now. Proud of you. No emoji, no punctuation, just that. I stared at it for a long time. The phone screen lit my hands, buzzing once more and then going still. I didn't reply. A few weeks later, I was back in Oklahoma. Same porch, same picnic table, same sweet tea sweating through a red Solo cup. But the air felt different. Lunch was grilled chicken, corn on the cob, green beans the way Dad liked them, overcooked and full of butter. I sat across from him like always, but this time, he didn't go for the usual. He looked up from his plate and said, "How's your team doing these days?" Not, "What is it you do again?" Not, "Still in tech?" Just, "How's your team?" I blinked once, then nodded. They're good. Tired but solid. Got a new systems lead in Chicago I'm keeping an eye on. He nodded like it made sense, like he understood what any of that meant. Ben passed me the salad without adding a comment. No joke, no raised eyebrow, just the bowl, like I'd earned my place at the table. Sandy talked about her yoga class. Nobody cut her off. The rhythm was calm, different. No spotlight, but no dismissal either. My niece Olivia sat next to me chewing a dinner roll like it was her job. She looked up mid-bite and said, "Is it true you run entire operations?" I set down my fork. Yeah. Sometimes she gave a little grin, nodded once, and said, "Cool." That was it. No follow-up, no awe, just cool. And I love that. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to make myself smaller so everyone else could feel big. I wasn't performing humility, I was just being. After lunch, Dad went inside to grab pie, and I followed him in to help. The living room was exactly the same. Same worn recliner, same dusty TV stand, same photo frames lining the mantel, except one had changed. The picture of Ben shaking hands with the mayor at the fairgrounds? Gone. In its place was a framed photo from the Dallas summit. The three of us, me, Ben, and Dad, side by side, back straight, half smiles. Equal. I stared at it for a second, didn't say anything, just let the moment settle. Dad came in with the dessert plates. "Thought that one looked better," he said, nodding toward the mantel. "More complete." I didn't answer, just took the plates and headed back to the table. Outside, the sun hit different. Not brighter, not softer, just honest. Back in DC, I shut the condo door behind me and kicked off my heels. The silence hit like a blanket. No porch chatter, no laughter from the backyard, no ice clinking in glasses. Just the hum of the fridge and the soft tick of the hallway clock. I walked straight to the hall closet, pulled out the fireproof lockbox, and set it on the counter. My blazer came off next. The badge was still pinned to the lapel, blackline ops, full clearance. My name right there in block letters. I unpinned it slow, held it in my hand for a second, then slid it into the folder marked Private Ops, Closed, right next to the others. Internal awards, NDA contracts. A few thank you notes without signatures, just initials, just trust. I didn't frame it. Didn't need to. Some people build lives in applause, in headlines, interviews, champagne clinks. I built mine in silence. Didn't mean it was less. Didn't mean it was invisible. It just meant I didn't need the noise to know I mattered. Outsiders never understood that. But the right people did. Now, when young women join our team and sit too quiet in the first meetings, I don't rush them. I don't ask them to speak up just to prove they belong. I lean in. I ask them what they see. because the quiet ones, they see everything. They hold the whole damn line. I tell them that, and I tell them not to forget it. When I walk the halls of the firm now, people nod. Some smile, some look nervous. Not because I'm loud, but because they know what I've handled, what I've protected, what I've rebuilt. And if my father ever forgets again, I won't need to remind him. The work speaks now, louder than any damn float or photo op ever could. And I'll keep doing it, quietly, steadily, until someone else is ready to carry the silence too.